There is a well-structured global market of derivatives happening. For global players, it's easier to trade. They have already the infrastructure, they have the connections and builds and pipes. The differentiation, I would say, that Latin America can have is like building suited products suited to the local industry. Futures on equities or futures on indices that are very local. They are not part of the international, I would say, research for global players, but can work for local markets. Financial education associated with quality products targeted to local investors, I think could be also an important element for this transformation on capital markets.
What steps did Brazil take to reimagine and modernize its local capital markets?
3 pillars. 1, expanding access to investors worldwide, let's say everybody to access the market. 2, increasing the quality of the products that we had there in Brazil, especially equities. 3, financial education and all the efforts towards educating the local population towards becoming year after year investors in the market. So those are 3 elements that are key for the evolution that you will see if you pick any number in 2000, 2005, compared to what Brazil has today. So it's a coordinated effort, several stakeholders taking part of it, but the results are almost 100% volume traded compared to the GDP of the country.
What challenges prevented Mexico from achieving similar breakthroughs as Brazil in market modernization?
This enhancement of the product and making products more suited to global investors, I think it's a challenge that should be addressed, if I may give a suggestion. And I'm telling this because I saw this happening in Brazil and even in Chile. When I was there, we could do a little bit of that and results were coming. Being open to address key elements that international investors need in local market infrastructure, products, even taxation sometimes, make it work over time. Definitely, having brokers that will be engaging with retail investors. In Brazil, this was transformational. We have especially 1 or 2 that were very targeted to retail investors. And if Brazil has 220 million investors nowadays in the market, is due to the efforts that those brokers decided to take. They make small margins, but they have a lot of results bringing a lot of investors to the market. So this is definitely something that should be considered when we talk about Mexico.
Do you think there is enough political and financial sector willpower in Mexico?
I would say yes. Why not? It's just a matter of sitting down all together, and this is important. It's not an effort of 1 or 2 institutions or the political power of the exchange itself. It's like the stakeholders and the ecosystem players sitting down together and engaging regulators, because financial innovation is a lot, not only on IT companies or brokers or anyone, but regulators have to be involved. And this was really transformational in Brazil when we saw the Securities Commission, but mainly the central bank pushing that. The political environment, you have to build it if you don't have. But I do believe that Mexico has a very strong capital markets, very strong players locally, investment banks and associations that could be really pivotal in this transformation.
What can Mexico's regulators and market participants learn from Brazil's approach?
I would tell the story of the central bank, of the digital banks it looks like it's very different from what happens in the capital markets, but in the end, it's all connected. So for years, central bank was very strict on rules to have traditional banks with branches and people, to support banking accounts and all the society. But at some point, some startuppers decided to work with the central bank to test and pivot some of the initiatives, very much in the oversight of the central bank, but small pieces of trials, let's say, like in a kind of sandbox infrastructure. And then definitely the central bank created the sandbox and enabled some digital banks to start operating without the branch and all the whole infrastructure that we know traditional banks will get. The results were players like Nubank and many others that are responsible for tripling in 10 years the level of bankarization in the market. So maybe to your point, regulators will not be willing to jump into the pool right away with innovation, but having a very well balanced testing, oversight, following up, and organization could be transformational over time. So the story with digital banks is 10-year long in Brazil, and definitely we were only 35 million people bankarized in Brazil, and now it's 180 million, so much more than the double.
Could pension reform, financial literacy, or tax changes boost growth in these areas?
Speaking specifically about the pension funds, as far as I know, the story is very well known in Mexico. Pension funds are very active in the local market. Even international trades are crossed here in Mexico. So I think pension funds are already a relevant player. But definitely financial literacy, by looking at the story in Brazil, it's definitely something that can be part of this building a new momentum for Mexico, equities and derivatives investments too. So targeting not only educating and giving literacy, but also helping them to understand the standards of how much they have to invest, and specifics like margin calls and all the things related to guarantees and collateral that have to be dedicated, specifically targeted to futures also, or derivatives are also important.
Which lessons from US, European, or Asian markets best apply to speeding up growth in Latin markets?
There is a missing element that we tried differently in several markets, but we never tackled specifically, which is SMEs into the capital market. SMEs, of course, private equity funds and venture capital, they are all participating in this. But the stock market generally, the infrastructures in general, are not part of this ballroom with all those players. So we looking into UK, the experience with AIM markets in LSE, or even what United States have for smaller cap companies, could be, and even Canada has a story with their ventures exchange, could be an important input to create something in Latin America, even if we took different approaches because of the different markets in the region, but based on ideas and experiences that were built overseas, and associating or applying some local flavors and specifics about the size or the types of investments and everything. So SMEs is definitely something that we can be inspired with UK and US and other markets.
What is holding back hedge funds from broader development and participation in Mexico's markets?
They don't see the opportunities here. They do hedge operations in other markets, even taking FX and currency, but perhaps they need to be more the volatility or the challenges that will represent the need to create hedge funds. So I'm an enthusiast, but I'm not sure there are things that are preventing them. It's just a matter of the scenario that we have that created an environment in which they do hedge operations overseas and not locally.
If you were to advise the Mexican market leaders today, what would you say?
First step is sitting together and thinking about the purpose of developing the market and not only their personal benefit. We saw that in other times in the story in Mexico and in Brazil, and when everybody sits together and try to convene on specific points that are beneficial for everybody and can help build the market, build a better market, we've been successful on that all. By saying that, it's a matter of sitting together and thinking of a long-term strategy. It doesn't matter where the government goes, who is the government, or if it's left or right. The point is sitting all together to think about improving access, putting a shine in the quality of the assets that you have locally, and thinking about the results that you have on that on a long term. Maybe it will take 10 years, maybe 15 or 20, but be sure that it will come and it's not the short term only.